Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. We're continuing our series on Book of Mormon geography theories. This time we're going to hit Malay, Baja, and the New York Book of Mormon geography theories. Check out our conversation. Next theory that's definitely different is the Malay theory by Dr. Ralph Olson. Ralph passed away, about 5 years ago. So unfortunately, I actually spoke with Ralph before he passed away, and this is a really fun theory. I know a lot of people will look at this theory and say, Asia, Southeast Asia, how can this be? But one of the nice things about this is, number one, you've got a north-south orientation on a peninsula here. So it kind of matches Mormon's map that we mentioned a few slides ago with Dr. Olson. The word Thailand means land of the free. When we talk about the Book of Mormon being, or in the Book of Mormon, it mentions that America will be, or the promised land. I shouldn't say America, so it never says America. The promised land is a land of liberty, and so this area has never been colonized by any of the Western powers. And so, that could be a case where you could say, oh, did not know Thailand means land of the free, but that's kind of interesting. Casey Kern did a 4-part review of this theory at Wheat and Tares. I've got a link there if you'd like to see. So this could include modern-day Thailand, Malaysia, and Burma. And I've actually got an interview with Casey coming up in about a month, and we're going to go into a lot more detail than I'm going in this presentation. But the thing, the thing that I like about this is a lot of the anachronisms that Book of Mormon critics complain about: gold, horses, elephants, that sort of thing, disappear completely with this theory. So wheat, barley has been used in the right time period. So Dr. Olson's first manuscript is called the Melee Peninsula. I've actually got it on my website. Vonnie Rivas is Ralph Olson's daughter. She's on the call here tonight, and she gave me permission to put this on my website. So if you're interested, this is a kind of the free version of the book here. You can purchase the book there, but the free version is now on my website at that link there. The website is down right now. Vonnie's trying to get it back up. And then Brant Gardner has kind of a rebuttal at the Interpretive Foundation that he takes some issues with it. But I thought I'd once again go over some of the pros and cons. One of the nice things about the Malay theory, it supports both a boat migration that Lehi Nephi took, and a land migration with the Mulekites. And so that's kind of interesting. Elephants, horses, plants are all found on the Malay Peninsula. There's a documentarian named Simka Yakubovich, and he in this film here, Quest for the Lost Tribes. Simka is I'm trying to remember what he refers to himself. I think he refers to himself as an atheist Jew, but he has a huge interest. He's done a couple of films on the lost tribes. He's done one on Moses and the plagues of Egypt and the Exodus and that sort of a thing. But anyway, in this film, Quest for the Lost Tribes, he believes that the tribe of Manasseh settled in the Malay Peninsula in his film Quest for the Lost Tribes. So that's kind of an independent little thing there. The peninsula matches quite well. The distances match. There really aren't any anachronisms. It's more likely to support DNA evidence. I know National Geographic has been doing trying to get a genomic study on various parts of the world, and I'm trying to find out, if you believe the DNA history that America was populated by Southeast Asians, well, this could kind of fit that as well. I'm trying to define. There's a group of people called the Karens. It looks like when you spell it, it looks like the name Karen, like a woman's name Karen, but they're called the Karens. They claim to have Jewish ancestry. I've been unable to determine if their DNA supports that. I haven't been able to find that. I think it might not, but I haven't been able to nail that down yet. So Thailand, as I mentioned earlier, means land of freedom, similar to the land of liberty in 2nd Nephi. And of course, it would be much easier to go 4,000 miles rather than 16,000 miles to the Americas. So those are kind of some of the pros there. Cons, it's definitely one of the most unusual theories out there. It's also got little support among scholars. Most people kind of get behind John Sorensen and that group. We'll talk about some other theories too. Book of Mormon and early church leaders said the Book of Mormon was about the inhabitants of this continent. When I mentioned that to Ralph Olson, he said yes, but it also says, and from whence they came. And so he thinks that they could, this could be complementary with some of the other theories. Oops, didn't mean to go forward there. One of the other issues, just like with Mbe Melican, how did the plates get to New York? When I asked Ralph that, he said, well, Moroni lived about 30 years after the last war. In 30 years, you can pretty much go anywhere in the world, and plus an angel can move them anywhere that he wants. So that's kind of the Malay theory. The Baja Theory. This is oops, sorry, I'm trying to move this thing around so I can see. Whoops, back up here. Malay, the Baja Theory. This was, I interviewed David Rosenval. Him and his dad. His dad was a geographer at, I think he was at BYU, if I remember right. You can see his website there, achoiceland.com. And I've got the interviews. I interviewed him a while back. He basically believes the Baja Peninsula, which is, of course, just below Southern California and across the bay there from mainland Mexico. Once again, it has a north-south orientation, so that seems to be a benefit. It's got a similar climate to the Mediterranean. A lot of times, Nephi says that they took seeds with them and the seeds grew. And so, they probably wouldn't grow very well in New York, but being a Mediterranean climate, theoretically these seeds would have grown. David also says this is compatible with the Mesoamerican theory, and he says that maybe they started in Baja and then perhaps migrated over to mainland Mexico. The peninsula matches, the distances match. He says there are no anachronisms. I take a little bit of issue with that. I'll talk about that in just a moment. The Book of Mormon and early church leaders said the Book of Mormon was about the inhabitants of this continent. So that would be another advantage there. One of the things that David has done is he says that there are some similarities between Uto-Aztecan language and Semitic languages. And so they've done some research on there. I think we need to get some more on that. But he thinks that there are elements of Semitic languages in Aztec languages. Some of the cons, the biggest, he said that there are no anachronisms. One of the claims is the elephants, horses, plants are found here. The problem is the elephants and the horses are found in the La Brea tar pits, which are in the Baja Peninsula, but the carbon dating dates those to the last ice age, which is 10 to 20,000 years ago. So yes, there were elephants, there were horses, but we haven't found anything that date to the time of Lehi. So that's one of the problems. But yes, there have been some things found in the La Brea tar pits. Of course, with all of the American, either north or south, you're going to have DNA problems. We've not been able to identify any pre-Columbian DNA that matches to Middle Eastern DNA. Once again, from the Baja, once again, how do you get the plates from the Baja Peninsula to New York? There were no wheeled transports. In a lot of ways, the Native Americans kind of lived in Stone Age technologically, and so it would have been very hard for Moroni to transport the plates. They didn't have any wheeled vehicles. There is some growing support among scholars. So I didn't mean to put that under the cons. Actually, that should have been under the pros. They are David's father, especially. I can't remember his name. He's a geographer. I believe he teaches geography at BYU, and so there is getting to be a little bit more growing support on there. I need to move that over to the other column there. But another theory that's kind of a fun theory is kind of this New York Great Lakes theory. The one that I'm familiar with is can be found at bookofmormongeography.org. With this theory, it's kind of a limited geography theory in the fact that it basically it takes place among the Great Lakes. You can see between the lakes, those lakes could be called seas. The Dead Sea in Israel is much smaller than the Great Lakes. So if you refer to the Great Lakes as seas, you could argue that. You've got lots of places for narrow necks of land there. And this is the one theory that I'm most familiar with. There were some reviews done at a website called Mormon Heretic, and these were done back in 2008, so they're a little bit dated. The website has definitely changed since then. My impression is the guy, and I wish I knew who it was that runs it. He's not a scholar at all. If you challenge him on anything, he gets really, really defensive. But there's, being in New York, Great Lakes, one of the things about the Book of Mormon is it never mentions snow or cold. And I can't imagine, especially being around the Great Lakes, there would have been a lot of snowstorms. There would have been a lot of cold. I know, everybody likes to say the Hill Cumorah is in New York. You would think that they would have mentioned a snowstorm in the Book of Mormon. So Sorensen and most other people think that it was more of a tropical climate. And so that's another problem with the Great Lakes theory. So it's not really, as far as pros, it's not a north-south peninsula, but it has several candidates for a narrow neck of land. The lakes could be reasonably construed as seas. Limited geography is more appropriate than, say, a hemispheric model. Another pro is it's very near Hill Cumorah. You would have a one Cumorah theory. Most of the other theories that we're going to talk about a two Cumorah theory, where Joseph Smith never called the hill where he found the plates Cumorah. That was kind of named after the fact. But people that believe in the New York / Great Lakes theory, as well as the Heartland theory, a lot of times they will say, there was only one Hill Cumorah, and they'll use the same point that I mentioned with Baja. The Indians or the Native Americans really didn't have a lot of wheeled vehicles, and so transporting those plates thousands of miles would have been very, very difficult. And so, so that's one of the pros of the New York theory is you're only going to have one Cumorah. Cons, you've got DNA problems. We don't have any Native American DNA that matches to Israelite DNA. We don't have any elephants, horses, barley was not used, and those sort of things. So you've got some anachronisms. This theory is not scholarly at all. He tries to identify the Iroquois, but they don't date to the right time period. And as I mentioned earlier, the Book of Mormon never mentions snow, and so the climate doesn't seem to match. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about Book of Mormon geography theories. In our next conversation, we're going to talk about a South American theory. If you look at this map, of course, down the center you see here, this is kind of the Amazon River basin. And so the idea here with this is that this was all flooded, and so if you look over on the west coast, you've got Peru, and the looks like it's got a narrow neck of land right here. And so if you look at this, then you can say, oh wow, well this makes more sense as far as having a peninsula, a north-south peninsula. A lot of the climate matches.
For those of you who are interested in the entire interview uncut without any interruptions, sign up at patreon.com/gospeltangents, and you can hear the entire interview for just $5 a month. Also, we have other tiers. If you'd like to subscribe on our website at gospeltangents.com, click on the yellow subscribe button, and you can subscribe for $10. You can also do that on Patreon and get a PDF transcript. We've also got some other ones for $15 and $20 if you'd like to get those as well. If you're interested in individual transcripts, go to Amazon.com and do a search for Gospel Tangents interview, and you can see our past interviews there in paperback form. So just check out Gospel Tangents. We're always updating those. For the latest updates on Facebook, go to facebook.com/gospeltangents, and you can see our latest updates there. We're also on Twitter at Gospel Tangents. Of course, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. And please give us a 5-star rating for those of you who listen to audio only. So once again, thanks for listening. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some more of our great videos. Thanks again.